Oh, hey there, target demographic. Remember that time 4Kids had the license to One Piece and somehow managed to entirely bungle it? Okay, well, for day, whatever this is oh shit, maybe I should make a video gust. We're gonna talk about that time 4Kids fucking mangled One Piece because, I found an interview with, the media brander for 4Kids from, like, 2010, like, little did he know his job was just gonna be fucking gone in like a year. Oops. Okay, so 4Kids teamed up with Tosh Media, or Tosh Productions to produce Pokemon. And 4Kids is a pretty small distributor at the time. And I don't know if you guys heard, but Pokemon fucking exploded. Like it was some whole other shit. I don't know why I'm describing it. You guys know Pokemon was some big shit. Arguably more thanks to the anime than the actual video games. Or at least I'm in the camp of thinking that because you can't market you can't market this. You can't market whatever the fuck this thing is. I sure do hope I remember to go back and put something right there. I probably won't. uh, so 4Kids does that, and 4Kids says, okay, this is pretty good. These Pokemon-like things are working out pretty well. They did a lot of steps with Yu-Gi-Oh, put a lot of effort into that. Going as far as to put in entire image songs that were just for the anime, and some that just weren't even for the fucking anime at all. So they're doing good. They are the anime guys. They are bringing anime to a larger audience that it's a little bit younger than the Dragon Ball Z demographic. So they're doing swell, they're doing good, but they figure, ooh, I need a slice of that fucking Dragon Ball Z pie. Um, in some recollections of the story, I hear the issue was Mew Mew power, but from the interview I listened to a while ago, the issue was Shaman King. So in some I hear, oh well, Toei TV said with Shaman King, um, if you want the rights to Shaman King, then you gotta take Mew Mew Power. And from the interview I heard, which is one I'm gonna give a lot more credence to because there's way more pressure around it for, Shonen Jump being a thing. If you want Shaman King, you gotta take One Piece. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Because 4Kids, even though they made a shit ton of money off of Pokemon and made a pretty hefty amount of money off Yu-Gi-Oh, they don't really have much experience like negotiating deals and what they will and will not do. At the time, Funimation apparently had some type of unspoken agreement with, but they got a much better deal with 4Kids because 4Kids, didn't know how to negotiate. Like they've only done like maybe 3 anime, like period. So 4Kids effectively got stuck with One Piece because there was no way they could really negotiate out of it because you don't really want to be on bad terms with with Shonen Jump. So they're sitting here, they're pretty happy with Shaman King, and they look at One Piece and go, "Oh boy, this is not great." Because on top of having like normal, cartoon censorship, like notes saying shit, which is fine because there's no dub, and taking out some of the more extreme violences, or just removing the death and calling it a day like normal 4Kids things. Um, One Piece is a weird one where there's a lot of blood. Like editing out a little bit of blood isn't really too much of an issue, but editing out blood from like a at the time 300 episode series, that's all bad. Like there's a reason why eventually Funimation just said, okay, fuck it, you're just gonna have blood on your Dragon Ball Z. Because there are a million episodes of it, so what can you do about it? Like you're just stuck here. Uh, okay, so 4Kids now has the rights to One Piece because they apparently probably forked over a little bit more money than they would more than likely love to admit that Funimation probably wouldn't have. Initially, the game plan was to create a relatively faithful dub, but that didn't really seem possible relative to how they like to market their anime. And when people found out that they had One Piece, everyone was a little bit fucking pissed. And, you know, when you're a media company, you got to figure out, okay, why are all these people fucking pissed that we have this license? And the answer they more or less concluded was because anime fans like it, and 4Kids isn't really in the business of selling anime to anime fans. I mean, sure, anime fans will watch it because it's like, you know, 2002, 2003, so where else are you going to go for your anime? Uh, Times are rough. Times are real rough. We are just barely out of the era of going to the shady Taco Bell to exchange illegal burned 6 times over anime. So yeah, 4Kids is stuck with that One Piece license, and they realize, ooh, this is bad. This is real bad because One Piece is a weird one. One Piece has a shit ton of violence, and it's also a really long series too. So there's no if it bombs, you know, they're just stuck with it. Like if it's a 13 episode thing and it bombs, and you know, whatever. If it's like 300 episodes, well, shit. Now it's here. So they figure, okay, so let's try to make this work within the parameters that we can. Um, because their standards and practices are like not just their own, but also of like the network that they're on, which I believe is Fox at the time. And you know, Fox's standards are, you know, significantly different than like regular TV standards. And also, you know, there are a whole shit ton of other standards and practices as well if you're, you know, within a certain time slot, unless you want to take a big penalty. This is why you know, Toonami seems like a perfect fit for a Saturday morning block, but you know, it was rarely on really early in the morning because putting violence in a really early cartoon is pretty tough. And specifically, the practice in question is that of fantasy violence versus like people violence. And the short rule of thumb is that like person on like robot violence or like shooting a laser beam, that's fine. Or like, you know, getting hit by like a magic beam, those are fine. That's fantasy violence. Like, but person to person violence, that's a little bit rough. This is why in like your Thundercats or whatever have you, you see like, or I'm sorry, not Thundercats, He-Man, but probably Thundercats too. You see a lot of them have these swords that like pew pew, they shoot lasers, because that's like a fantasy thing, so it's inherently less violent. Or you know, Pokemon, like they're just, you know, they aren't people. They're not people doing this. They're Pokemon. They're not shooting real weapons. They're blasters, not guns. Uh, so 4Kids says, okay, well, this is a fucking mess. But you know, we're stuck with it now. So they said, okay, well, let's if I remember correctly, the company was a little bit split. Some people saying, okay, we're gonna eat some fucking dirt here. Like we're about to take a real big fucking hit to our credibility if we take this on. While other people are like, well, we gotta do what we gotta do, because at the end of the day, um, kids media doesn't really matter all that much, which I personally disagree with. But I mean, children are rather stupid. If you didn't know that, children are fucking stupid. That's why they can't read. um, which is what the CEO Alfred Kahn one time said, that children don't fucking read. Um, okay, so now that you know, we don't have a choice, I guess we gotta fucking mangle One Piece. And at one point or another, they had the good idea to go ahead and dub the anime because they knew there are people out there that wanted to see a real good, real proper dubbing of One Piece. Um, so they eventually dubbed We Are. Let's see if I remember to put that. Oh, shit. Put that right there, maybe. I'll wait. No, I'm not. If I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. Okay. So, they 4Kids as a dubber is more in the business of adapting a property rather than straight up dubbing it. So for them, they are seeing this as like, when I say they butcher a show, I don't mean that in that the sense of they did it wrong or they did it poorly, even though in this case it's true, but in the sense of they are literally butchering it. They are chopping it up and taking the pieces that they want and, you know, using those and discarding the ones they don't. And For this case, they chopped out a lot of episodes they thought were just kind of filler. That turned out not to be. Mostly in effort to get more quickly to Chopper, a fun cartoon mascot. Um, as well as throwing out most of the opening sequences and making their own 4Kids rap. Normally for this kind of thing, I would think that they're doing it because licensing fees, because you still do have to license the anime opening, because that's music that's not necessarily owned by like Toei Animation, like a song may be owned by Sony, so you have to talk to Sony to write them a check. Nowadays, that kind of thing is handled in-house, and it's usually included along with the anime, but at the time that probably wasn't the case because we are in the very early days of licensing anime. Okay, so yeah, they kind of used the same stock voice actors they had around and figured, well, let's just kind of milk this as hard as we can. Because you would think that if they hated doing it, they would do the least amount of editing possible. Like just leaving the music alone or something, but no. No, that's not the case. So they just went ahead and used all the sort of recycled 4Kids music and voice actors they just had around, like Sonic the Hedgehog is voicing Usopp. And a lot of weird, odd choices are just kind of, okay, well, we'll just have you voice this guy, leading to an odd mix of, good voice actors like the guy who voiced Zoro versus the person who did Luffy's voice in really bad direction, too. Uh, so yeah, that is that's the story of how 4Kids bungled One Piece. They got a license to an anime they really shouldn't have, and oops, yeah, they totally were entirely underprepared. And nowadays, to my understanding, what became of 4Kids is 4K media that mostly dubs Yu-Gi-Oh. And 4K media is generally pretty good about taking a lot of work to think about what they're going to dub. Um, and Japanese producers generally are sort of aware of what things are under strong consideration to be dubbed. So they're basically aware of what things will and will not need to be changed and the difficulty therein. Like with Yu-Gi-Oh, for example, they generally go pretty far out of their way to make sure that any changes they need for Yu-Gi-Oh are things that they've at some point considered with 4K media. And I believe the same is true with Digimon too, because, even if it's not an accurate adaptation, like, Japanese businessmen in a fucking conference room don't really care if this show is accurate or not. They just want to make sure that it's, that it's making money. So, if they are just gonna, chop that boy up and, serve it up on your Saturday morning Disney XD or whatever, make it easier for the distributor to sort of make it happen. This is why Pokemon generally has a whole lot of oversight from Nintendo now. So, yeah. Uh, Now you know about a weird anime licensing shit. And if you enjoyed this, go ahead and subscribe, because this will probably not be the last time we talk about weird anime licensing stuff, and it's certainly not going to be the last time we talk about 4Kids, unless if it is. Okay, so that concludes day 5, 6, day number of, aw shit, maybe I should make a video guest. What's today's date? Oh, jeez.